Okay, so this lesson is going to be a recap of product of primes. If you haven't done product of primes yet, you should watch the lesson that teaches you how to do it from scratch. But this is just going to be a quick practice lesson on how to work out the product of primes of any number. So first thing we're going to do is just the keywords, product, prime number, and remember what the prime numbers are. Then I'm going to do a couple of examples and then there's a practice exercise towards the end. And we also go over the common misconceptions. So something to look out for, especially if you have an assessment coming up. So first of all, when we're talking about product, we are talking about when two or more numbers are multiplied together, you get the product. So the product of 5 and 2 is 10. The product of 8 and 3 is 24, and so on. So when you're writing something as a product of prime numbers, it means you're writing it as a multiplication. Prime numbers, as you probably remember, are numbers with exactly two factors, 1 and itself. So an example of this is 13. There are no numbers that go into 13 other than 1 and 13. And the first few prime numbers, if you can pause the video and try to make a list of the first, say, 10 prime numbers, and then you can compare it. So I'm about to put it on the screen in a second. Okay, so here they come. So you should have got 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and they go on forever. Now, a common misconception or mistake is people get confused with the 1. You have to remember that 1 is not a prime number because it only has one factor. So let's do an example of finding a product of primes for the same number, 150. Now I'm going to do this in 2 different ways, or 3 different ways, and you're going to see on the screen how I get the same answer every time. So let's do the first one here. So the first thing you want to do is draw the upside down bus stop. This method doesn't strictly have a name. You can call it upside down bus stop method or ladder method. It doesn't really matter, but the method is quite straightforward. So you're now going to pick a prime number that goes into 150. Generally, it's better to pick smaller numbers if you're not confident. There's nothing wrong with picking bigger numbers, but you'll see what the difference is in a second. So we're going to divide this one by 3. So 150 divided by 3 is going to give you 50. And we're going to divide by 5 to get 10. We're going to divide by 5 again to get 2. And we're going to divide by 2 to get 1. When you get to 1, you stop, because otherwise you'd end up going on forever. And you don't want to count the 1 as a prime number anyway. So as soon as you get to 1, that's where we stop here. So the answer here is going to be all of these numbers written as a product. So let's do that. So it's going to be 2 times 3 times 5 times 5. And you can also write it as 2 times 3 times 5 squared. So that's index notation. Both of these are equally correct. It's generally nicer to write the smaller numbers first and just in ascending order, but you don't have to do that. So the second way of doing the same question, rather than starting with 3, I'm going to start with 5. So 150 divided by 5 is going to give me 30. Then I'm going to divide it by 3 to get 10. Now I'm going to divide it by 5 to get 2. I'm going to divide it by 2 to get 1. So you can see in the same way I'm going to get, if I write them in order, 2 times 3 times 5 squared. And then one more time, again, just going to do it in a different order, just for giggles. I'm going to divide it by 2 first to get 75. I'm now going to then divide it by 5. So 75 divided by 5, I'm going to get 15. I'm going to divide that by 5 to get 3, divide that by 3 to get 1. So again, 2 times 3 times 5 squared. All three answers are exactly the same, equally valid. So you can pick any prime number on the left as long as it's obviously a prime number. The order doesn't matter, so that's the big idea from this. And then just be aware that sometimes you get tricky questions where you might need to, for example, use 19. So it's just something to be aware of. Don't panic if you can't find a prime number. Just keep working through the list. Okay, so now it's going to be your turn to write down the product of primes. Write 225 as a product of primes. Pause the video, have a go, and then I'm going to do the question for you. Okay, so I'm going to now do the question. Hopefully you have an answer. If you got the answer of 3 times 3 times 5 times 5, you don't need to go through my explanation, you got it right. The other way to write this is, of course, 3 squared times 5 squared. Okay, so I can see that this is divisible by 5 straight away. So rather than starting with 3, I'm going to start with 5. So I'm going to do 225 divided by 5. I'm going to get 45. And now I'm going to divide that by 5. So 45 divided by 5 is going to give me 9. And then I'm going to divide by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and you can see we're going to get the answer, which I've already written on the right hand side. So 5 times 5 times 3 times 3, product of primes, 225. Right, now we are going to try an exercise. If you pause the video and try to do the following questions, the answers will start to appear in a minute. So just pause the video, have a go with as many of these questions as you need to. Okay, so here are your answers. Mark your work. Remember, you can also write these as indices notation. So for example, A can also be written as 2 squared times 3, and so on. Okay, so on the next video, there are some common misconceptions. So it's only a 1 or 2 minute video that's worth watching to see where students go wrong with this topic.